Good evening and welcome to the March 9th, 2020 work session of the Mayor and City Council. Tonight we have one discussion item, and that is a presentation from the Montgomery County Commission on Common Ownership Communities. But before we begin, I want to just make a quick statement about coronavirus and vis-a-vis the city. We are actively monitoring the coronavirus situation and will continue to share information as it becomes available. Senior leadership, emergency management, and communication staff are all participating in local, state, and regional conference calls to stay on top of things. The Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services is the lead health agency in our jurisdiction. You'll find up-to-date information and helpful resources on the county's coronavirus webpage, to which we've provided a link from the homepage of the city website. This is obviously an evolving situation. The safety of residents, our patrons, and our staff is paramount. The most important thing you can do is stay informed via reliable sources and practice good hygiene and common sense. Stay away from people who are sick. Do not travel if you're sick. Wash your hands a lot. Use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer if soap and water are not available. Cover your mouth and nose with a tissue or your sleeve when coughing or sneezing. At this time, there are no facility closures or program cancellations planned. We will communicate via our website, social media, and other outlets at our disposal should the situation change. And with that, we will begin, and I will let Kevin Roman take it away.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight's work session is on the Montgomery County's Commission on Common Ownership Communities. It's also known as the CCOC. The Commission Chairman, Mark Fine, is here tonight, along with Department of Housing and Community Affairs Division of Finance and Administration Chief Tim Gotzinger. They're both going to present the Commission's missions, processes, and procedures for resolving disputes and regulating elections, budgets, and enforcements in common ownership communities. In addition, they will discuss the educational programs and technical assistance the Commission can provide to unit owners and board members. Before they begin, I want to just make clear that common ownership communities are homeowners associations, condominium associations, and housing cooperatives. They have four basic characteristics. All owners are automatically members of an association. They have legally binding governing documents that create mutual obligations. And there's also mandatory fees or assessments that are generally charged against owners for the operation of the association, and owners share a property interest in the community. In the city, we have about 90 plus associations making up approximately 14,000 dwelling units, which is just about half of the city's current housing stock. And with that, I will turn it over to Chairman Fine and Mr. Tim Gotzinger for their presentation.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Again, my name is Tim Gotzinger. I'm the Chief of Finance and Administration for the Montgomery County Department of Housing and Community Affairs, and just a little bit of background in the structure of the department, just to kind of be able to encapsulate where the Common Ownership Communities program falls within the department. The department has three divisions. One, of course, Finance and Administration, and that is where the COC program is. It's also where our federal grants are, asset management, budget and finance, IT, and our licensing and registration. Our other two divisions are housing, which is where our MPDU program is. It's also where our multifamily development program is. And then the final one is community development, and that stores one of the largest programs that we have, housing code enforcement, and then also neighborhood revitalization. On the whole, we have a little over 100 FTEs. That means people working for us. We also have a few other temps and interns. In terms of the COC program, we have 3 full-time staff that include 2 investigators and also an office services coordinator that provides administrative support. We also have 2 temporary workers as well. And we also made a recommendation for an additional position, and we will find out on March 16th, when the county executive comes out with his recommended budget, whether or not he supports that measure. And that would be an additional office services coordinator that would help with a little bit of additional modernization of the program. I'm going to leave it to Mark to really go over what the program is and some of the goals and the aims. But in terms of overall the deliverables, what would you get if Gaithersburg decided to say yes and accept the COC program, the first thing that you would get would be scale. There are 1,100 common ownership communities under the program that include 140,000 units. And that includes a few other of the jurisdictions, including Rockville and Tacoma Park. Rockville was the latest jurisdiction to join. They joined maybe about 4 years ago or so. You'll also get a dedicated funding stream. This is a fee-based program. We charge $5 per unit, and so each of the 14,000 units that you talked about earlier would pay a $5 fee. That fee would stay within the program. It wouldn't go anywhere. This is dedicated. It pays for staff. It pays for operation. It pays for anything that the program needs, including some of the things that I'll later talk about. You'll also get customer service. Montgomery County institutes something called the 311 system. And so basically you can call 311. You are then directed through operators who get you to the appropriate program. Last year we received 775 service requests through this system and received a 99.1% satisfaction rate. That means if you called MC311, you get through to the COC program if that's what you were asking about. And 99 times out of 100 times, we would successfully and quickly get to whatever you were asking about. And that was last year. This year, we're actually doing a little bit better. We're on target for about 800 service requests, and we are at a 99.63% service request satisfaction. Also, I've managed the licensing and registration section, which would become very important if we had to register a whole bunch of common ownership communities at a short period of time. They are close to 100%, and they receive about 4,000 service requests a year. So we're very, we take customer service extremely critically, so we make sure that we answer any of those questions, and we're here for your residents. You'll also get a set of online tools. There will be online training, and we'll talk about some of those specific trainings that we offer. Of course, there is the required Board of Directors training, which we offer both in-person and online training. So if you're, busy like everybody else, you can take any of the 5 or 6 different modules at any time that you would like. Each of them are about 20 to 30 minutes long. There's a test. You pass it, you move on to the next module. It's very easy, but it also provides you with all the information that you need if you are going to be on the leadership team of a common ownership community, if you're going to be sitting on the board of directors. You'll also have online registration tools and information on the website. The complaint process, although it's not 100% online, all of the information is on there, and we are working to modernize it and make it so that you can submit the complaints online, and it'll automatically populate our case management system. So that's a very nice tool. There's a calendar of events, so if we're holding a training or a work session or a monthly meeting or anything, that goes up there to keep everybody apprised of what we're doing and where we are. There's also a law library, which includes a resource guide, which was just updated, which helps to show associations how to govern their communities. It was just updated to include the business judgment rule, and there's also additional topics, including how to structure and hold annual, special, and board meetings, and also information on budgeting and reserves, stormwater management, association insurance, and we keep adding to it. And then also, we are converting all of the decisions and orders for the thousands of cases that we've had, and we're going to make it online and searchable. So if there's any kind of an issue and you're wondering what types of governance issues there are, you can type in certain keywords and get all of the cases and all the decisions and orders for those specific cases. We do monthly and annual reports, and we provide basically it's a statistical overview of the cases that we received that month, and also in aggregate. We report monthly on our customer service and all of the finance and the budgeting. We want to be as transparent as possible. We want you to know, we want the community to know everything that we know. There are no secrets. Of course, there'll be the training. There's the Board of Directors training. Again, that's both in person and online. And you'll also get continuous improvement and new features. We'll be adding 3 new modules this year. One is on insurance indemnification and risk management. We're also creating a checklist to be used to evaluate a community's degree of compliance with legal mandates, contractual provisions, policy requirements, and the like. Also, we are including a directory and training module regarding county, state, and federal legal obligations that identifies the required filings, reports, etc. Because there's a lot that you need to be able to file and understand and know when you are governing a COC. Finally, and I alluded to it before, we have a new case management system which streamlines the case intake. We have imported the cases from the past 10 years to be able to take a look at the different trends and to see where we need to be focusing our time and if there's anything that we need to be doing differently. And then finally, we have basically established a fully digitized program. So we have an online case management system. The case submission or the complaint submission form is just about there. We have these e-readers that are loaded with all of the COC resources, any kind of case that you'll be seeing. So everything is in one place. Back in the day, we would copy thousands and thousands of pages and kill a whole bunch of trees, but we don't do that anymore. We'd like to think that we changed with the times and we are an environmentally friendly program. And so that is what you would get with the COC program. And for the details, of course, Mark Fine, and he is the chairman of the Commission on Common Ownership Communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Again, my name is Mark Fine. I'm the chairman of the CCOC. The CCOC came about in 1991. We currently have 15 commissioners. We're all volunteers. Most of us are here at this moment in the front row going across. There are comprised of 8 resident commissioners and 7 professional commissioners. The resident commissioners have to either reside in a common ownership community, be on the board of a common ownership community, what have you. Professionals have to be either a property manager, attorney, real estate, or something to do with common ownership. In addition to that, we have 8 panel chairs who are all volunteers, and we have 6 mediators that are volunteer. The commission meets the first Wednesday of each month at 7 o'clock at 1401 Rockville Pike. Our mission is pretty simple, 3 things: educate the common ownership community, legislate in Annapolis and in Rockville for things that would benefit the common ownership community, and to adjudicate on behalf of the citizens of the county. It costs you $50 to file a complaint, which you can get back if you win your case. When you file your case, we put an immediate stay in place on that particular issue. It then goes out. We will attempt to mediate it. If we can't mediate successfully, it will be moved to the docket for the commission. The commission will then take jurisdiction. We take jurisdiction, we assign it to a hearing panel. The hearing panel is comprised of 3 people: the panel chair, a resident commissioner, and a professional commissioner. We will take evidence from both sides. There'll be a court reporter there. A ruling decision order will be issued. That is binding. It can only be appealed to the circuit court. We have been overturned since '91, maybe about a dozen times. It goes through a lot of hands when we're looking at it. As far as the commission itself, as I said, we, as a commission, have been evolving for the last couple of years. We have been redoing our website. It is totally user-friendly. There are 8 sections in there, and anyone can do it. We have our training online. We do the director training twice a month in person, as well as the online. We're in the process now of putting some more classes online. The complaint process is totally streamlined. You can check in at any time to see if your association has registered, if their officers or board members have taken the class. If they haven't, you can say something to us and we will find out what's going on. You can check to see if the association is registered. You can do a lot of things without having to pick up the phone and call us. If you have questions about what we do, you can go right into the system. Check anything federal law, state law, or county ordinances. And currently the stats, everything I'm showing here, I believe you have received in your packets. Statistics for fiscal year 18 and 19, number of communities we had, how many units we had, revenue generated, information request, what have you. Fiscal year 19, there were 70 cases filed. Majority were in architecture and maintenance. A lot were dealing with something where the governing body needed some assistance in what they had to do. Either election, failing to conduct a meeting, failing to prepare something, failing to properly conduct a rule or enforce a rule, a dispute over damages, what have you. This is a snapshot of what the website looks like if you were to go to the website. If you're on the Google browser, you type in CCOC. You'll go straight to it. It's the number one search engine in the United States for common ownership community. We are the largest common ownership community regulatory body in the United States. The board member training, anything you want to know about it, where the classes are in person and how you can do it online, as well as who has taken it. Common ownership communities, who is registered, who is not, who are the board members, which helps a lot when somebody is trying to figure out who their board is and how to get a hold of them if they need something like a resale packet. It also lists who their management company is, and that's updated annually. Registering the association, the far right top is who the members of the commission are, who the panel judges are, and bios on us. Down on the bottom left, anything and everything you would like to know about the communities. We have our newsletters going back to, I believe, 1999 that you can search. The law library, as we talked about, complaints, if you want to file a complaint, how to file a complaint, booklets in there about what to do to be prepared for it, anything you need to know. And lastly, our schedule of what's going on as far as the commission is concerned, what hearings we have, when our committees are meeting, and whatever. Statistics from July through December of 19 and activities that we had, 50 disputes filed. Again, the breakdown, and majority of the cases right now are leaning toward something that the board of directors did not do. So it is an education process, and that is what we try to do, is to educate the board and the homeowner. Anybody can take this class. It doesn't have to be a board member. We have people taking it from outside of the state of Maryland. Let's see. When someone comes into the office, they will meet with one of the investigators or our staff person. They will assist them in filing a complaint. The complaint is filed. Then documents go out to the responding side. From there, we start the process. When the commission meets, we will decide based on the criteria of the county code what we will do if it meets the county criteria for a case. We'll take a case that is between the homeowner and the board of directors, or a renter and the board of directors, but we won't get involved between a homeowner and the management company, or the board of directors and the management company. Let's see. We have updated our manual and resource guide, which I believe you have, that is that white booklet. It is basically a resource guide for everyone within the communities to get a snapshot of what the board should do and what the responsibilities are. There's also a training booklet that anyone that takes the class gets that stays with them so that they can refer to it. We have both of those online if somebody would like to pull it up online and refresh themselves on it. We have any number of materials that the homeowners and the board can review. Anything from elections to how to run their meetings to income and expense statements, how to read them, how to process through them, reserve studies, how the reserve study equates to the budget, and all of those are free. We will come to the association if they'd like us to help them do what they need to do, and a lot of times they will come to us and we'll meet with them and help them, guide them down the path so that they understand what the responsibilities are. What questions can I answer at this moment for anybody on the council?
First off, thanks for the presentation. We've had presentation from CCOC before. Right. I think it was 2013. Was it that long ago?
It's been a while.
Seems like yesterday. We really appreciate it. So what is the cost for each unit these days?
It's $5 per unit per year.
Okay.
And that covers everything from training to materials to us assisting, space for meetings, whatever.
So
and staff.
And just as a refresher, Gaithersburg is not opted into the CCOC, so our HOAs are not within your jurisdiction. Are there any other areas of the county that are similar?
Poolsville has not opted in yet. They are in talks with us now, and also a couple of small towns down in the Chevy Chase area. The biggest one that was not was Rockville, who came in July of 15, effective January of 16, and they opted to come back. We are getting a lot of calls. We probably get about 7 to 10 a week from citizens asking, we have a problem here and we would like to do this, and we have to refer them up.
Understood. Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you both for the presentation. This is an issue that I've been following for a number of years, and for those who were involved in the discussion back in 2013, you know kind of generally my views about the issue, and I'm sure we'll discuss that a little bit more later. But before we do that, I wanted to hear from the public. But I did have a couple of specific technical questions, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer them because they are pretty technical, but if you're able, that would be helpful. The first one's not too technical. The mayor asked about the current fee, which is, as you said, $5 per home per year.
Yes, sir.
We need to clarify that's per year, not $5 per month or anything like that.
Correct.
How is that usually collected? Is it a line item on a property tax bill? How is that done?
Generally, the association will craft it into the budget. We'll send out an invoice during the fiscal year, and then the association to the management company will send the check back into licensing, and at the same time we update the registration information, who's on the board, how many units, who the management company is, and what have you.
So basically, the general way to do it is to have the HOA collect it from the unit owner through their dues,
in
and
assessment.
then pass on that
Yes, sir.
that piece of it to you all.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When complaints are filed or cases are filed in your process, they can be filed by either an HOA or a homeowner?
Yes, sir.
So it's not just a homeowner that might have a complaint against their HOA?
Right. It could be an association has a problem where, for example, the door's supposed to be blue, they painted it green, or they put a deck on that they didn't get approval for.
Right.
They exercise through the governing documents what they need to do, and if they're not getting anywhere, then they file with the commission, and the commission will step in and hear the case.
And regardless of whether it's an HOA entity, large or small, or an individual homeowner, the charge or the fee to start that process is
$50
$50 flat filing fee for
Correct.
anybody to bring a case.
Yes, sir.
And any other charges or fees beyond that during the process?
No.
Okay.
And you're not required to bring an attorney.
That was going to be my next question. You beat me to it. So neither side is required to bring an attorney in that process. And so do you have a number of cases where an HOA, might be the initiating party and they show up and they argue their case, but they don't have an attorney, an outside attorney that they're paying? It's just maybe members of the board or the property manager who's representing the HOA?
It's been done.
Okay. You talked earlier about a lot of the local, state, and federal trainings and filings that are required that you all provide a variety of resources to support HOA boards on. Just out of curiosity, because this is something we've done in Gaithersburg, do your materials, if you know, include assistance with FHA certification or recertification processes that will allow homeowners in condo units or in HOAs to be able to resell their units to buyers who are using a mortgage that might be backed by the federal government? That's a technical question.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We can lead them to where they need to go to get the documents.
Yeah, I don't think that our specific documents
Yeah.
or trainings go into that level of detail, but
Sure.
we can help.
That's hyper-specific. I figured that was the answer, but it's an issue that we've been looking at that could use some attention, some additional attention. We've been trying some creative ways here in Gaithersburg to address it. It just seemed like something that might fit well with your mission, so I throw that out there. When you have a case before the commission or a hearing panel of the commission, if someone wants to appeal it to the circuit court, do you know what the standard of review is in the circuit court? Another technical question, is it what they call de novo? In other words, the circuit court reviews everything?
Capricious.
The standard is arbitrary and capricious. It was whether the panel's decision was arbitrary and capricious.
Correct.
Got it. So in that sense, the circuit court is really sitting much more like an appellate court.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. And then I had a question for Kevin, actually, if I may. This was something that came up in 2013, and I just wanted to ask you about it. When we do outreach on discussions like this and work sessions like this, we have a sort of a built-in system of, email distribution and other ways to reach out to the HOA boards and leaderships of, many, if not all, of our 90-plus common ownership communities within the city.
That's correct.
The challenge here is, with all due respect to the board members and the leaders, how to get the message out that this conversation is happening to individual homeowners.
The memberships, yes.
I'm sure many of the board members pass it along to their homeowners and let them know that the city is talking about this. But in the event that there are some that might not, how do we kind of ensure that we're getting the word out to everybody who might have a stake in this discussion?
We also utilize the website to advertise the work session, but that's a good point. It's something that we've had challenges with. In my email out to the association board of directors and the property managers, I did specifically request that they send it out to the general membership.
Okay.
When we did the survey back in 2013, we did survey about 3,500 of the general memberships, just sent out, I think, 25% of each common ownership community, and we got some feedback that way as well.
Great, thank you
Okay,
very
you're
much. So those are my questions for the moment, and I'm sure we'll have an additional discussion after we hear from the public, but thank you.
Neil?
Okay, so I was on the other side, out there, I guess, when the conversation was happening in 2013. I was on an HOA board, and we were looking at, and I was on the board of a very large HOA with 2,200 households, so we, at the time, felt that this was not that helpful to us, given the resources we already had. So the question is, basically what we used as our resource for education and best practices was the Community Associations Institute, where the membership is only $250 a year for the whole board of directors. So how does your educational material differ from that organization? Is there some value add that you provide beyond that? And I'm just focusing on the educational part, not on the adjudication part.
Now, CAI focuses more on the property manager. They're just now doing more in depth on the board members. They do a few of the classes that we are doing. They sponsor seminars and things like that. We also do town halls. We will come on site if required. We will bring people in and meet with them. We have at least 5 or 6 different classes that are available that we're tweaking now to allow the boards to go to, or any member to go to, and they're all free. When not saying anything against CAI, you'll see that some of the times when you're taking those classes, you pay that fee, then you're also going to pay a fee to take the class.
Okay, I mean, basically, I never took any of the classes, but we amassed a large library of materials, so there was a lot of information that.
Right, we still have that online, and you're welcome to that, or if you don't want to download it, you just send us an email or call us, and we'll send it to you.
Okay, I just found that there was certainly plenty of information out there available for board members that were interested.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the difference is you're making it a requirement as opposed to, hopefully, more board members are interested than not interested, but not really a requirement for other associations.
The biggest requirement is taking the training to understand what the board member's job is. We found that a lot of the boards that aren't taking or haven't taken it are the ones that are having the issue where things are not being done properly. For example, you have a board meeting. Law says you're supposed to notify the homeowner of that meeting at the same time you notify the board, because the meetings are open. Mm-hmm. They don't do that. And we emphasize the fact that, you know, all meetings are open to the public except for the 8 reasons to close, and make sure that they're doing what they need to do to protect the association, fiduciary responsibility. The last, I guess, 4 years now, 3 years, in Maryland, they've embezzled well over $5 million out of associations, and we're trying to make sure that that doesn't happen.
How do you ensure that that doesn't happen?
Making sure that people know that they have safeguards in place. If your bylaws say that the treasurer is the one signing the checks, is the treasurer signing the checks? Or is the property management company signing them? You know,
And about requirements for audits, right?
right, everything. And a lot of times people don't know that. You'd be amazed at the questions we get when we're doing these classes about, I didn't know I was supposed to do that.
Okay, so I have some questions about your finances. You mentioned that your board members here are volunteers, and thank you for your service. It sounds like a challenging role to take on, so it's much appreciated. Your mediators are also volunteers, yet you raise hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in contributions. Where does the money go? I mean, you have 3 full-time employees. I'm sure they're, knowing what county salaries are like, they're probably not that highly paid.
We pay the full-time staff. We also have some temporary staff there. It pays for all the education materials. It pays for doing the classes. It pays for our website. It pays for everything to the homeowner.
Okay, and I saw in your materials there's about $150,000 a year in indirect expenses. Do you know offhand where that's going?
You wanna?
Sure, that pays for the county attorney who oversees, you know, the legal aspects of it. It pays for the Department of Finance, because this indirect cost for the Department of
So
Finance.
those are kind of allocated expenses that go out for other
Exactly,
services?
because it's a
Okay.
restricted fund and requires certain accounting.
Okay. And my last question is really about the amount of time that this process takes. The concern that I remember from 2013, the discussion with our management company, is they were concerned that this was just going to add another layer of time to the process that already can be drawn out. If there's a dispute with a resident who happens to be litigious, and there seems to be a fair number of lawyers living in this county that are happy to have fun with this sort of process. Is this adding an extra layer beyond what would already exist if the organization if the HOA wasn't a member of your organization?
I don't know if I'd call it a layer. I know that if you were not proceeding through the CCOC, that homeowner's going to have to go to circuit court. They're going to have to pay for an attorney, which is going to cost them several $1,000s to adjudicate that case. With us, it's not going to go that route. We have in the code timeframes that we must adhere to get that case through the system. And we can get it, if there's something that needs to be expedited, we can expedite a case within 30 days and have it before pound.
Okay, thank you.
Mike.
Yeah, one of my questions was along the same line. So thanks very much for the presentation and the refresher. And I'll ask some questions that have come up all the time whenever we've heard about this before. And I guess the first one is basically when Rockville opted into this, that meant all of their HOA communities, their communities were then required to be part of the CCOC. Is that correct? So there's no option for any community to opt out of this, even though the municipality, such as Rockville or us.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So everybody's in. Okay. And then so we've talked about the association rights and the property owner rights. We haven't talked about, the property owner isn't always the resident. Mm-hmm. So how do renters fit into this, and what's their avenue for addressing disputes either with an owner or with the association on behalf of the owner or something like that?
If the association is coming at the renter for a particular thing, the renter also has rights against the association. If the association says the renter has to this, the renter can come to the CCOC against the association. Okay. It's either the homeowner or the renter versus the association or vice versa. If it is a landlord-tenant issue, we don't handle that.
Okay. Right, and then the only other option, if the communities have been opted in by choice or by action here, the only other option in addressing a dispute is to go to circuit court rather than invoke this process, correct?
Correct.
And then that's a considerable cost for everybody, the association as well as the residents. So, and then, so out of 50 disputes filed between July and December 31st in 19, there are still 44 pending cases.
That was when that report was generated.
Okay, well, it's March 10th, so 2020. So I'm just wondering how many of those. So this report was generated at the end of. This was the activity summary at the end of December 2019. I'm just, it's going to the issue of how long it takes to resolve the dispute.
Generally,
so
anywhere between 90 and 120 days, depending.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's extenuating where, say you have a mediation, you can't get one side or the other side to the table, or there's a problem at the hearing where somebody needs a continuance. But for the most part, if it gets to the hearing stage, we can generally come to a conclusion in one night.
Mm-hmm. And the mediation process, is that generally lead to a resolution without a decision from the commission? And
most of the time,
mm-hmm.
the mediation is before the commission takes jurisdiction.
Okay.
And when the mediation agreement is written up, it says that if either side fails in that mediation to do what they need to do, it can come back to the commission.
Back. Okay. And how long does the mediation process usually take?
Here lately, they're getting done in a couple hours, but we've had one or two that have gone 2 sessions.
Mm-hmm.
I had one myself that went 3 days because it was dealing with mold, asbestos, and a couple other things.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it for now. interested to hear what the public has to say.
Rob?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, gentlemen. Just to pick up where Mike left off, so the mediation process, is that compulsory, or is that something that either the HOA?
They must go through it. If the case is filed and the complainant does not go into mediation, they don't have to agree to it, they just have to attend. If they do not attend, do not wish to attend, we dismiss the case. If the respondent does not show up for mediation, they don't have a seat at the table at the hearing. If it gets to that point, it'll be a default judgment.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of courts these days have the compulsory mediation as the first step. But who bears the cost of that? Is that something the CCOC provides the mediator? And okay.
The only charge is the $50 filing fee.
And so, I think you stated before that the current process, when we're not opted in yet, so our residents aren't availed of the opportunities or resources of CCOC. Their only avenue is the circuit court.
Correct.
And so, if we were to opt in, does the CCOC necessarily replace the circuit court? Or can our residents still go directly to the circuit court, or the HOA go directly to the circuit court?
They can go directly to circuit court if they wish. There have been times where one party has gone to circuit court, the other party has come to us, and then the judge decides who got there first, and that person has jurisdiction.
Okay, so if they bypass the CCOC and go to circuit court, then the court sits as a trier of fact.
Right.
But if they go to the CCOC first, then the circuit court will sit as the trier of law.
Right.
On appeal. Okay. I wasn't here in 2013, so I don't have the ins and outs of the program. So please forgive my ignorance.
No problem.
What are the I guess authorities, the remedies available to the CCOC? I mean, do you have for cases, do you have sanction authority? Do you have contempt authority?
We can issue Class A violation, which is a $500 fine, and at some cases per day. We can order them to correct, and if for whatever reason they don't, we can send it over to circuit court for enforcement. We also have the HCA can issue the class, and then if not, it'll end up with the city attorney or the county attorney, and the county attorney will enforce it over at circuit court.
Okay. Do you ever award attorney's fees? Or can you award attorney's fees?
We have if they're frivolous, if the complaint is frivolous.
And is that written into the
It's in
governing?
the code that we can do that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get more up to speed on the ins and outs.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, this is the time when the mayor and council would like to hear from anybody in the public who'd like to comment on this. We ask that you keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes, and when your time is down to 30 seconds, the timer will beep and turn yellow. When your time's up, it'll beep and turn red. If you have more than 3 minutes worth of information to give us, you're welcome to email it to us. We will consider it just like any verbal testimony. We ask that you state your name and address, or if you feel more comfortable, your neighborhood for the record. Please, whoever would like to speak, come on up let's line up at the podium, and we're glad to hear from you.
Hello, my name is Dallas Lip. My wife and I live at 505 Midsummer Drive in Washingtonian Woods. I've spoken to you all individually and testified once or twice on this subject previously, strongly in favor of the city joining the CCOC. I'd like you to keep some words in mind as I talk. Arbitrary, captious, capricious, high-handed, whimsical, and not in good faith. So in 2004, we were looking to buy a house. We pulled up in front. I looked at the roof. I said, we got a budget for a roof. I'm a firefighter. I have some strong feelings about cedar shakes. So I did some investigation, made sure that it wasn't a problem. We bought the house. We went to change the roof. We submitted the paperwork with the homeowners association, and they said, no, it's got to be cedar shake. I said, there's other houses in the neighborhood that have gone from cedar shake to non-cedar shake. There's nothing in the rules. What's this about? We went back and forth. They wouldn't budge. I needed a roof before winter. We bought in June or July. I put a roof on that wasn't cedar shake. They took an adverse action against us, filed liens, imposed fines. I had to go to circuit court to sue them, and we prevailed. The cost of doing that, if you count up those words that I just spoke at the beginning, tacked about $5,000 on each one of those words. That's about what it cost us to get that judgment. So the $50 filing fee that Mr. Fine spoke about sounds very appealing to me, particularly the part where if you prevail, you get your $50 back. The thing that I find most concerning about the current dynamic is the power imbalance between the associations, the homeowners associations, and the owner, or the homeowners, because in my case at least, the cost of the homeowners association was nothing. It did not show up in their budget for their legal expenses that they expended, which were probably comparable to my legal expenses. It was all covered by insurance. So they had no motivation to act in good faith. And in fact, the circuit court found that they did not act in good faith. They acted not in good faith is the way the judge worded the ruling. So I would strongly urge you all for $5 per unit per year to vote that we in the city of Gaithersburg join the CCOC. Because although I hope I never have to do this again in the future, I would much prefer to use that process than what I had to use to resolve our issue. And in 2004, we were one of those phone calls that Mr. Fine mentioned, calling CCOC to see if they could help us, and found out, because we lived in the city of Gaithersburg, something that I didn't understand beforehand, we couldn't use their services.
Thank you, Dallas.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me have this opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Diane Golden, and I live in the Kentlands. I came to this meeting to support the city of Gaithersburg joining the CCOC. It is concerning to me that as it stands now, there are no offices or agencies our city residents and their homeowners associations and management companies can work with to clarify information, to ask questions, or if need be, to mediate a situation. Without the city under this commission, who can I go to if I have an issue? Like, without any of those different parts that combine to be where we live. I also believe that the training given by the CCOC for board members should be mandatory for anyone in a board position. It stands to reason that mandated training would reduce issues and reduce disputes. Unfortunately, board members, the way I understand it in the jurisdictions that are not under the CCOC, are not mandated, although they openly are able to get these trainings. Joining the CCOC, I think, would be a win-win-win situation. The homeowners association boards win because they learn how things should be done and have a resource for questions that may come up. Residents win because there's oversight for where they live, which can impact the quality of life and often protect and offer protection of possibly their most important investment if they own their own home. And finally, the city of Gaithersburg wins because they associated with an office that can help their constituents in ways that are not currently available. The registration fee of only $5 per household per year, well, the way my grandmother would put it would be, that's a bargain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Mary Balak, and I live in the Kentlands. I'm living in the condo community, the Colonnade. So I, too, would like to support having the CCOC available to residents. I think it'd be really helpful to have oversight and training available for the boards that are elected to kind of manage our homeowners associations. I had a particular issues with our homeowners association that cost me a significant amount of money, but hiring a lawyer in this case would have added even more cost to me. So mediation would have been really welcomed. So I'm going to try to briefly sum it up. The board came to me came to me offering a storage unit because I didn't have one, which was nice. We have 5 boards, so this is one of the boards came to me and said, we'd like to offer you a storage unit. And I said, cool, how do I do that? So they described, do it this way, this sales agreement, yada, yada, explained the process for buying this storage unit. 7 years later, they decide I no longer could own that storage unit. But I also couldn't be, the cost consideration was not returned. And I couldn't get a phone call returned, I couldn't get, I just got threatening letters saying I had to remove all my items. So it was just a very vulnerable, not knowing where to go. Spent a little bit of money on lawyers, but realized for $5,000 that was going to be not cost, was not cost efficient because those prices went up pretty fast. So anyway, I have been in that position of go, where do you go? So this sounds ideal in terms of mediation and some sort of place to go. And then also just in general, I just really like the idea of, if I was a board member of a homeowners association, having some place that had my back in terms of resources, and yes, things are online, but having a team of people that are going to try to up my game in terms of governance, as a volunteer in the schools, as a volunteer in the church, and currently you all as a volunteer for G Park. There's trainings, there are people available that are kind of making sure that my volunteer position is at its, I'm utilizing best practices. So I see this as just a great opportunity.
Thank you, Mary. Come on up.
Being short, I have to lower this mic here. Good evening, council members. I'm Dina Saunders, president of Audubon Square HOA. I do have a question. If you're not a member of the CCOC and you have, let's say, a suit, and you have an attorney that you work with your HOA, how would you still be able to use your attorney? Or would we have to go through the CCOC if we're not a member of the CCOC?
Dina, we'll follow up on that question. Just go through your all your comments.
That was just my question.
That was it?
That was it, yeah. Just a simple question. There's more coming.
Okay. You guys have a quick answer to that, or you want to wait till the end?
If they're not an association within the CCOC, we couldn't hear the case.
And if they are, they can bring their own
They can
attorney
bring
if
their
they
own attorney
like.
if they wish.
Okay. Come on up, Steve.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mayor. Steve Kaufman, Audubon Square, Secretary of the Board. I had a couple of questions that I imagine you'll want to follow up on later, but I thought I'd throw them out there. First of all, if the city were to adopt the CCOC, would there be the option for individual HOAs to opt out? Also, we have a rather diverse group of individuals in our HOA. As somebody mentioned, $5 is $5, and it may not seem like a lot, but in our development, it actually does seem like a lot to people. Which brings me up to, it had been mentioned that the $5 is collected by the HOA. In the event that the individual homeowners are delinquent in their dues, how would that $5 then be collected? Who would be responsible for the payment of that? It was also mentioned that the enforcement could be up to a $500 fine. Would that be to both or would that be applicable to both the HOA and the homeowner and/or renter? How would that fine be applied, and who to? And that's actually all I had for the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If you have quick answers, go right ahead.
Okay. It would be all opting in or no opting in.
Yeah.
As far as the what happens with the assessment, it's charged against the association, so it would be in their annual budget, and then they would need to address it with the individual homeowner for the collection of it, if you're following me. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, I just forgot the third question.
If there's a delinquency, who gets the fine?
If there is a fine issued, it would depend on if it was a case. It would be whoever was being.
So it's
Whoever
just
loses.
about
Whoever
judgments.
loses.
Right.
It's not
that,
about
And
delinquencies.
then if it's something regarding failing to take the training or whatever, it would be the association.
I see. Okay. Go right ahead.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sherry and I'm from the Kentlands. I don't have a lot to add.
Sherry, can you state your last name?
Koerner.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have to personally say, I spent in excess of $8,500 last year on a dispute that was involved not noticing a meeting. And given that we're all equals in these associations, that it was a really sad situation. And I was actually advocating for all the other people that were getting taken advantage of too in the community. And I think it would be an excellent resource to have an even-handed, neutral body for adjudication. I would have welcomed a $50 fee and a neutral body. And I think that there are many, many people that would do the same. I implore you for less than 50 cents a month to people. I think that they would gladly agree. Certainly. Thank you for your time.
Lynn?
Judd, don't smile at me. Good evening.
Would you
my
prefer I frown?
He smiles at everybody.
So, just to get it out, as I came,
let's go through.
Lynn Nash,
Thanks.
Saybrook, just to get it out, coming by, I drove by Kelly Park, and guess what? There were more than 30 cars. There were people enjoying the park. So, who Kelly Park? Save our park. HOA boards are volunteers, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to uphold the covenants and bylaws as well as any resolutions. And in my 478 home association, you're talking about 8 inches worth of documents, and that doesn't include the Maryland law, which recently changed and put a lot of other things in place. The quality of boards are variable. It's a continuum. Some are rule followers, some want to throw the rules out, some are autocratic, and some are democratic, and they actually want your involvement. I think the idea that you can receive training and get technical assistance is amazing. $5 a home is really pretty small. And in the case of my homeowners association, who failed to provide the appropriate notification for our annual meeting, didn't come with a budget, didn't pass a budget, we didn't have a snow contract this year, we need some help. So I too had an issue. They published a really nasty letter, okay. $3,600 later, they refused to budge on removing defamatory information from a public document that happened to be my private vote on a covenant issue. So my only recourse after $3,600 and several telephone calls was to go to circuit court, which wasn't a good use of my money. But I'm here to tell you that sometimes you get boards who just frankly don't want to do the right thing. They want to do their agenda. And for that reason, I would ask that you consider this and actually go ahead and resolve that our homeowners associations should be subject to the CCOC. By the way, your training is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Carol Kaplan. I'm a condominium owner in the Kentlands. I didn't prepare any remarks, so I'm going to do my best here, but I want to thank you all, first of all, for listening to us, and I'd like to thank the previous speakers. I think everything that they said, I second. I really am in favor of Gaithersburg joining the CCOC. I think that what we really need is oversight and professionalization of our HOAs. I'm very strongly in favor of the training that's involved, because I do think that many of our leaders in the HOA don't understand what the laws are and the proper way to run meetings and resolve disputes. Residents really need this assistance. I could spend hours here telling you my horror stories and the horror stories of my neighbors in dealing with HOAs. I won't take up your time with that, but just to say, I think that this will bring a great deal of peace and reduce stress for life in these communities. So with that, I just ask you with all my heart to please allow Gaithersburg to become part of the CCOC. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Sally Mayan Cox.
Sally, just grab that mic there.
I'm president of the board for Shady Grove Village 2. We're a little community, 108 townhouses. We hire professional management. We did an extensive process to be sure we got good professional management and that kind of thing. And one of the things that I have not heard addressed is how going with the CCOC would affect what we have to pay our management company, because somebody's going to be collecting those fees, somebody's going to be tracking the paperwork, somebody's going to be posting the bills, somebody's going to be paying the checks, and in the end, that's going to be additional expense to us. We are, I think, a well-run community. We pride ourselves on working well and that kind of thing, but I would like to see some kind of statement about how that extra interface would impact community management and that kind of stuff. I also would like an address about what happens right now if we have a lien, against a homeowner or that kind of thing. Our property management sends it to our attorney and it's processed that way. Would we have to have the property manager take it to the CCOC before it could go directly to an attorney? Those are some things we'd like to know. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a quick answer for that?
Okay, as far as the fee, it's a one-time bill, once a year. Property management works for the board. It should not be an increase in their expense. It should be part of what they're doing. As far as the process of lien for collection, they would continue to do what they do. We would not stand in the way. They take it to the court.
So a homeowner could dispute the lien though and bring it to you, right?
No.
Okay.
Because your jurisdiction doesn't cover things like liens.
We're not going to get involved in something involving the lien if it's just a lien in the collections.
Right, because that's more about the actual claim to the property as opposed to the management of the HOA rules. Right.
Okay, go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Deb Wenzel, and I live in the Kentlands, and thank you for having this open public session and allowing us to make comments. I've gone to the CCO website, and I would like to share what's written there because I think it's important for everybody here to understand what their mission is. It says, and I am quoting, "The Office of Common Ownership Communities is committed to providing owners, tenants, residents, board of directors, and management companies of self-governing residential communities with information, assistance, an impartial dispute resolution program that 1, improves the quality of life in the community, 2, strengthens the self-governing community structure, and 3rd, enhances the value of residential property and community associations." It also goes on to say that the CCOC provides these services to the public with integrity, transparency, and a commitment to the highest ethical standards. The CCOC provides a 3-hour online training program for board members and educates residents on what a common ownership community is, including what you should know about buying a home and living in a common ownership community. Now, having that been said, with what's on the website, I'd like to add that there are only 5 other cities in Montgomery County that are not under the CCOC besides the city of Gaithersburg. They are Garrett Park, Laytonsville, Poolesville, Somerset, and Washington Grove. None of those 5 cities compare in the size and population of Gaithersburg, nor do they have the variety of housing that our city is so fortunate to have. I believe your constituents of the city of Gaithersburg deserve the services that the COC offer. The city of Gaithersburg is consistently voted as one of the most diverse and best cities to live in the United States. Adding the city of Gaithersburg under the CCOC would commensurate with this honor and offer services that are needed and are totally unavailable by any other agency in Gaithersburg at this time. So I'm very supportive of the city of Gaithersburg joining the CCOC, and I hope that that is what you decide. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lori Plazinski. I live in Washington Woods community, and I just wanted to emphasize how important it is for the residents to have a voice in the process. We talked before about the power imbalance that the community, the HOA had against the resident, and the whole process for us when we were disputing the homeowners association rules was very stressful, and just trying to negotiate the process. Not only was it costly, there's just a huge power imbalance. Just to address Councilman Wu's concern about the mediation, when we went to circuit court, they did enforce mediation. Our homeowners association sent a representative who basically said at the end there wasn't anything he could do in mediation anyway without going back to the board. So we weren't able to resolve the issue. That was a whole day that we spent with our attorney that was basically wasted because there was just no resolution that was going to even happen. So I think the opportunity to have the mediation through CCOC would be an excellent and productive use of a mediation tool, which was not available to us. To address the gentleman's concern about the disparity, I think basically charging an additional $1 a month would more than cover any costs to the homeowners association in administering this. We're talking 60 cents directly, but if for any reason that included extra cost, the extra 40 cents a month, I think would more than cover it. And certainly anyone who can't afford that extra $1 a month is not going to be in a position where they can really defend their rights as a citizen, because the cost of not having the COC available is much greater than the opting in portion. So I'd like you to consider that as well. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks for reconsidering this.
Do we have any other speakers this evening?
Sorry, I just couldn't stand up that long to wait. Larry Seeger from Fernshire Farms Homeowners Association. I'm the board president. Have been for the last 20 years. So clearly I'm in the minority here as doing something wrong because we don't have these kinds of disputes in our community. That simple. My concern with the CCOC issue, I'm on the fence, truthfully. I could go either way. I see good and bad to it. I hear things, negative things about the long, lengthy process it creates, and that's been mentioned already this evening. I read in their documents that they submitted in the handouts, as well as what was published online, that they do they help with the collection of fees, fines, and assessments. I've heard that that's not the case. I'd like clarification on that. That would be our biggest advantage for delinquencies. That we're going to ask homeowners to pay an additional $5 and they won't even pay their monthly assessments. That's, to me, a problem. So if we can get that part. Another concern is the opt-out. You're going to ask your associations all or nothing. You must buy into this. You're forcing them to charge, which in our case is about $1,700. So it's not a huge amount of money. But I think that's not necessarily fair, and then also to require the board members to attend. I mean, I don't have a problem with attending the classes, but we have a problem with getting full board seated sometimes. The apathy is incredible. Now you're going to put another layer of restriction on what they can and cannot do as far as attending these classes. And if they can't or don't attend the classes, does that mean we're a non-functioning board? That's a concern. So that's really about, a few key points I wanted to hit on. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. You guys want to address
As far
this?
as the assessment, if the assessment is with another charge, we will proceed, but if it's only for collection, we will not. So it must be with an additional problem in the complaint.
And what if a board member doesn't undergo the training? What happens?
We haven't had any yet that have not. We will come to them. They'll come to us. They'll do it online. We give them an ample opportunity to get it taken care of. We have yet to find a board member for failing to take it. And we've been doing this since January of 16.
Did you have a question? No. Are there any other testimonies tonight? Lynn, question for you. If the council wants to move forward in exploring this, what is the process? Is this an ordinance that would go through public hearing and introduction and all that?
Yes, if you wanted to move forward it would be an amendment to section 2.6 of the city code to opt into a portion of the county code. So that would go through introduction, public hearing, and then final action.
Okay. So obviously if it's the guidance of the council to move forward here, there will be other opportunities to weigh in from the public, from any interested parties. And are you looking for some, Kevin or Tony, are you looking for some guidance here? Do you feel guided? At this point, it's just been sort of informational.
Yeah, I mean, we would need some sort of indication that you would like to at least introduce an ordinance for further discussion. It seems like another session like this would not be as useful as an actual public hearing.
Okay. Council members, do we have a nod or a head shake on moving forward with?
I think it's no surprise I'm supportive of doing that, and I didn't mean to be too coy earlier, but for those who haven't been following this since 2013, I am very supportive of this, and I see it as sort of a consumer protection issue and an education and resource support tool. And I do think that there are those who occasionally characterize the CCOC as something that's sort of pro-homeowner and anti-HOA, and I don't see it that way. I actually see it as being a great resource for all sides. It's not a punishment for HOA boards. It's really a resource to help boards do their job and be protected, because as we know, they're pretty much volunteers themselves, and they are put up against the stresses of having to run an HOA, and that's no easy task. And they need to be supported, and they need to have opportunities to resolve disputes as well without having to spend HOA dollars on a lawyer or without having to go to court if they don't have to. So I see this as sort of a win-win. One of the residents who testified said it was a win-win-win. And that's how I see it. I know it's not a perfect process because the county law requires us to either opt in completely or opt out completely, and we can't pick and choose which HOA communities would be in or not. I understand there is some concern about how you would assess the $5 annual fee, collect it, and the administrative piece of that. I get that. So it's not a perfect process, but overall, to me, it seems like it would be a tremendous resource for our constituents, both board members and individual homeowners. I'm glad to hear so many folks showed out tonight to support it, and I would very much like to move forward with it.
Yeah, I've been supportive about the same amount of time that when we first heard about this. I don't live in a HOA community, so, but I certainly we hear from our residents all the time about various disputes and issues, and we also hear issues like Mr. Seeger was talking about, where he's been the HOA leader for 20 years, and sometimes filling an HOA board, making sure that you have a complete membership of your board is difficult. So what happens if Mr. Seeger decides to retire and leave the area? Who's going to take over a board like that? I think this offers training and perhaps might even facilitate being able to fill out a board, knowing that an organization or an agency like this has some support for a board and the work that they do. So, you know, I think there are great advantages to living in a community, a common interest community, shared community. Not everybody has that advantage, and some people look at that as a disadvantage. But still, I think this is a good system to think about opting in. And I think we had another person talk about the diversity of communities here and the large number of shared or HOA communities within the city, and I think that's an important thing as well. And they vary in size as well. We've heard that tonight. So anyway, I'm supportive of introducing.
Do Neil and Rob support introduction?
Pretty much the first conversation I had with Ryan in 2015 coming on to the council was Ryan saying, "Congratulations, have you heard of the CCOC?" So, I'm interested in finding out more, certainly in deference to his knowledge and understanding of the program. I think introducing and seeing where the process goes is the appropriate way to go.
Neil?
I think, introducing and continuing the discussion and giving us a chance to read some of this material here is the way to go.
All right. Feel guided, Tony?
I want to say one last thing for the HOA board leadership folks who showed up tonight. I just wanted to make this point as well, because it's a fair point you made that there are very well-run HOAs in the city, and we acknowledge that. And the situation we're in is that there are 90 plus of them, and not all of them are Shady Grove Village 2 or Furniture Farms. Some of them have other bigger challenges, and even the ones that don't have big challenges could probably benefit from some of these resources. But I did want to acknowledge that we understand that there are a number of you out there who are working really hard to run a tight ship with your HOA. This is really about the bigger picture when we think about all the HOAs and all the residents who are living in HOA communities. So I appreciate your understanding of that.
And is there a way to make sure that Larry Seeger never retires or leaves his position?
You're going to carry me out of my...
There you go. See, there's your answer.
That'll be the next ordinance we introduce. Okay, well, thank you all for being part of our discussion tonight. The next regular meeting of the mayor and council is on Monday night, 7:30 p.m. That will be Monday, March 16th. I'll remind everyone that we have... did you have something to add?
I just wanted to say one thing when you were done.
When I'm done, we're adjourning this meeting.
Speak now or forever.
Speak now.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to thank the mayor, council, and attorney, city manager, and Mr. Roman for inviting us and for allowing us to participate. I also wanted to thank my fellow commissioners for coming in tonight for support. And if you would like, we would be more than happy to take the director training class, bring it to you, and let you go through it so you see what it is.
Maybe. We'll see how much time we have to do that.
I'm just saying.
But we join with you in thanking your board and everybody who serves in this capacity. It's really a good thing you're doing for the community, and probably often a thankless job. So.
And you're always welcome to our meetings. It's always the first Wednesday of the month.
Excellent. Just want to remind everybody that we do have the St. Patrick's Day Parade at 10 a.m. over at Rio on Saturday, and the Friends of the Wells Robertson House is having a brunch fundraiser at the Doubletree by Hilton on the same day, Saturday at 10 a.m., which I hope to attend both. Until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.